that, I'm going to allow Shelly P. to come up and give us a mortgage update with Prosperity. Yeah. And just remember, we have a whole group out there in TV land that you're going to be talking to as well.
Like my new suit, my new outfit?
Here you go.
Okay.
Give it up for Shelly P.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. Did everybody forget we have bacon on Tuesdays? For those of you viewing at home, we have bacon on Tuesdays. We're back, everyone. I just really wanted to take an opportunity to say thank you for those of you who came out to the event on Tuesday. That was really nice to see everyone. I know we raffled off on Real Estate Exposed. For those of you who don't know what Real Estate Exposed is, it's a podcast that Brandon, Bonetta, and myself partake in, I'd probably be the right word, Fridays at 1:30. And so we raffled off the iPad, and the winner of the iPad was Thomas Bouchereau from the Green Valley office. So congratulations to Thomas. He is the proud winner of a pink iPad Pro. He picked the color, didn't want purple. Anyways, I also want to let you know that Thursday we are going to be hosting our event Thursday here, Lunch and Learn at 11:30, so make sure that you RSVP. There's a lot of things happening with the mortgages, with marketing, and with all of the things that we can share to help grow your business. So if you're planning to be here, it's here in this office, 11:30. Gabby, Myra, myself, Jason, a few of us are actually going to be speaking the top 10 ways that we can help you grow your business, because I don't know if you guys realize this, but we're winding down Q2. We're about to get ready for Q3. And so as we prepare for Q3 and really to finish our year strong, which I know is kind of crazy because we're not even 6 months into this, we want to help you do that. So make sure you RSVP either to Team Shelly or to Kim so that we make sure we have enough food for you. And that is really all I have.
It's pretty good.
Back to you. All right, thanks, Chris. Like my jacket?
Nice job, Shelly. So we have Janet that is going to share with us some of Janet's stuff. So give it up for Janet Carpenter.
Thank you. I don't have much stuff this morning. Main thing is, if you didn't sign up for the general membership luncheon, oh gee, it's sold out. And you're missing out on probably one of the best events of the year. But the good news is, tomorrow at the Summerlin office, we're having a probate class. Now, I don't know if the other managers have noticed it in their offices, but in my office, I'm definitely seeing a huge uptick in probate sales, and the agents have no clue. When can I list it? Or throw on the buyer end. We have 7 days due diligence, right? No, not from when your offer has been accepted. No, there's a lot of things that you need to know. So tomorrow at 10 o'clock, live at Summerlin, Attorney Jason Cassidy, I've taken his class before, it's excellent, will be there to tell you everything you need to know about probate sales. So, he does a fabulous PowerPoint so that we have enough handouts. Please RSVP with Bobby at signatureenvy.com. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Janet. Janet's probate class is going to be great. People are dying to get into it. All right, so real quick, you guys remember before, still laughing over there, I'm glad, we had wants and needs, and we talk about our buyer wants and our seller needs, and so this time we're going to do super secret listing, because we need listings, and hopefully you have one coming to the market. So if you have a listing on its way, please share with us the one that you want to sell first. Anyone have a super secret listing?
Yeah, I got one.
Okay, Ellie.
The ridges of 5,500 square feet,
Now you're just showing off.
5 bedrooms, 4 baths, the most beautiful pool you've ever seen in your life. There's no question about it. There are no better views from the ground floor or from the balcony than this has.
How much?
300,000? 1.4.
I'll take two.
That's a great
About 2 weeks. It really is.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Anybody else with a super secret?
Oh, look.
Not super secret, but super secret listing.
Hi everybody, my name's Adam Schwartz. I have a kind of unique, it's a condo. It's got like a loft on it, a little 3-story loft for 130,000 right over by, it's not the greatest neighborhood, but
Sell it.
it is over by the convention center. It would be a great monthly rental, you know, for the over 30-day thing. Of course, not Airbnb. And it's 130,000. It's gonna be all remodeled. Should be ready in about 30 days.
Wow. All remodeled for 130,000? Yes, beautiful.
3-story?
Like new tile.
Made an amazing.
Summerlin?
What's the homeowners association?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
300.
Summerlin?
Yeah.
I think it's kind of high.
In Ladera. I have a listing that's coming on in a couple days. I can't say the street name.
You say whatever you want.
It's on a street called Indian Cedar. I don't remember the number, but as you turn on Indian Cedar, it's the first house on the right on the corner, and it's 2,500 feet, and it's going to be in the mid 500s. Is that right, or mid 400s? One of the two. I can't remember that, but it's going to be a house that sells on day one. So if you have people that are looking for around 2,500 square feet in the south part of Summerlin, this is one to be aware of, or go drive over there right now and submit an offer today. I don't know that either off the top of my head.
But you just knows it's coming and it's going to sell right away. Anybody else with a super secret listing?
Does it have air conditioning?
Do you have one?
So secret, you don't know. Yeah, I just signed the paperwork.
Here.
I thought you were. Gulf Street.
Would you give that jacket?
Okay, so we have a couple coming on the market. We have one in Seven Hills that's coming on the market, 620,000. It's going to be a 2-story, 4 bedrooms, no pool, but it's a beautiful, beautiful area. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Seven Hills, but it's gorgeous, and so you definitely want to go check that out. We currently have one that we just remodeled, so technically it's going on the market brand new. New pricing, $499. It's 3821 Golf Lane, and that's a beautiful single story with a pool. It looks brand new, and we just did an open house, and we're going to do another one this weekend. So,
Where's that? Is that West Cliff and?
that one is 89108. So,
Sure.
a little bit, yeah.
All right, you heard it here first, folks. We have listings coming to the market that are going to sell the first day. That only started when I got over here. So again, I'm really excited today because we have the one and only David Brownell to share with us Brownell's stats. If you guys didn't notice, Brownell was the #1 agent in the company last month because he knows his numbers. I just want to put that out there. So let's give David a round of applause.
So probate. One thing about probate, this class is a good idea. Probate is a place to find houses for your buyers that no one else really knows about. So we had a probate sale, a listing in Madrid, and it's been going on now for about 5 months because the probate process is that long. But we got an offer, and the offer got accepted, and it was rolling, and it was $475,000. And in the probate process, the court and the attorney still is out to accept higher bids. So in came another buyer in the probate process, and they offered $500,000, and they won the bid, and so they were in the lead. And so we went to the day of the hearing at the court, and what happened is the attorney just replaced, instead of canceling and starting the process over and going through that court date again, just put this let the buyer that made the higher offer, instead of them being the main offer, he left the original offer as the offer. That buyer came in, they said, is there anybody else in the court? In order to protect the estate, they asked if there are any higher bidders. These folks bid higher. They were forced to bid in $5,000 increments. They bid $480,000. And they bought the house for $480,000, not $500,000. So what I learned in that experience is that if you keep your eye on the house, if you understand the probate process and you keep your eyes on the houses that are going through probate, you and your buyers can go in on the day of the sale, and all you have to do, the first bid has to be $5,000 higher than the offer that's being presented to the court for acceptance, and then after that they go in increments of $1,000, I believe, or $500, and then it might chop to $500 until they have a final bidder. Traditionally, the only folks that go to the probate sales that buy these opportunities are investors or those who are looking for a pseudo, I'll say, wholesale type deal. And so if you're a retail buyer and you're there, oftentimes your price, which is perhaps at or not necessarily above the fair market value of product in today's market, whatever that is, based on, it's an opportunity to get a house. And so I've seen it happen. We've had it happen twice for 2 of our customers since then, where they've gone to probate sales, they've made higher bids, and they were able to win. So that's kind of an interesting opportunity to create more inventory.
Quick question, I'm sure it'll be covered at the probate class. Can you just show up at the auction, or do you have to submit a bid prior to
Yeah,
that?
that's outside of my wheel. I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure if you can just show up. I think you have to register for, I don't know, I think you can just show up. I think you just show up, because the court asks, is there anybody in the room? And they don't know if there's 5 people or 1 or none. So I guess you can just probably show up, but it's a good question to know the answer to. Okay, so that's probate. So all right, I'm going to move quickly today. I've got a lot to cover. I'm going to talk about the market, and then I want to talk about a couple of books that I've read. What time is it?
9:40.
So I have how much? 50 minutes?
As much time as you need, Dave.
Well, no, I don't want to. So I can do this in 30 minutes. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is I want to talk about a couple books that have impacted my life greatly in the last few weeks. They were both recommended to me by somebody who I look up to and respect. He's my real estate coach. And they're two books that are the two of the best books I've read in a long time, and I read a lot of books. I probably read 150 books a year. So it's a big deal. So this first book that's has changed my world already is called The Psychology of Money. It was published in 2020 by a guy named Morgan Housel. And this book is a book that everyone should read because money's something that I think impacts or works in all of our lives in some way or other. For most of us, we understand money as something to spend. He talks about money from a completely different perspective. In fact, in the first part of the book, he says, we all have our own opinion, impression, and thoughts around money based on what happened to us during our childhood. And one thing that many people in this room have not experienced is growing up in a period of, quote, hyperinflation or high inflation. So we can't relate, many of us can't relate to that and what may be on a horizon for us here over these next months, if not year or so. And he says, so you'll think about money, and when you hear somebody else's opinion of money, you're like, that's effing crazy. But everybody has their own perspective, and it doesn't make one right or wrong. He goes through the book and talks about 15 or 20 core principles that are just big picture thinking, but it'll change your perspective dramatically. So it's a top 5 book I've ever read. It's quite good. The other book that's changed my world significantly is a book called Who Not How. And so this is a Dan Sullivan book. Dan Sullivan is the creator of a company called Strategic Coach. It's a big coaching company for small businesses like what we run in our day-to-day activity. And Dan Sullivan didn't write the book. Dr. Benjamin Hardy did. And so it's kind of a unique book because Hardy took Sullivan's concepts and then wrote a book about Sullivan's concepts. Kind of a cool thing. Benjamin Hardy wrote a book called Personality Isn't Permanent. It's a fresh book. It's another good book to read if you're in the real estate industry. But this book starts from the premise, and I was going to go through some of the segments of it, but I won't. I'll come back to it if we have time. But basically starts with the premise that says when we have a problem, we start off by asking the question, most obviously, how do I solve that problem? And Sullivan makes the point that says when you ask that question to start, you've already messed things up. That is a limiting question. That is a question that will bog you down, and it'll encourage procrastination in your life because we don't know how to do everything. And so when you say, how do I solve that problem? Basically what you intuitively or subconsciously said to yourself is, I'm the one who's going to solve this problem. And now I need to go figure out how to do that. Instead of, who can I go to that can solve this problem for me? Who can I go to that has resources that will allow me to solve the problem more efficiently, et cetera, et cetera. And so, game changer. It's changed. I am revisioning my business. And it didn't suck before today, but I am revisioning my business based on this book. And so, 2 really good books. I like to share things that I read that mean a lot to me, and so those are 2. The last book I'm in the middle of right now, I'm about 3/4 of the way through, but this is a cool book. I thought it was stupid at first, but it's actually turned out to be really good. It was also recommended to me. It's called The Checklist Manifesto, written by Atul Gawande, who's a surgeon. And, checklists. You should have checklists in your business, duh. But this book takes it to a level that gets you checklisting at a way that'll help your business a lot. He talks about the 2 different types of checklists, the do read versus the act confirm. I made those up, but that's kind of that same concept. First is you read through the checklist and you do the items one at a time. The other is you go through the checklist yourself and you get a confirmation that you've done things right. But he goes study after study using the medical profession and the airlines industry and talks about example after example where some of the most obvious things that need to happen before a flight or before a surgery get missed because there's a lot of things going on, and the only way to solve that problem is a checklist. And so if you know this, you have, whether you're a sole practitioner or you run a team that has support staff or colleagues or partners, you get, after a while, you have checklist, and after a while you stop, you know what, I got it all up here. But his argument is, and a lot of great arguments on some of the simple things that we tend to do that we don't even realize we're doing, that cause our businesses to disintegrate or to not be as great as they could be. So, all right, so with that, let's go in and talk about some real estate numbers. So April, we're going to talk about what happened through April of 2021. So I've got a graph up there that's kind of hard to see. Can I have those pieces of paper back that I offered to you? Yeah, awesome. And so I'm going to just talk about some things. One hard thing about looking at the numbers of April 21 versus April 2020 is that the data is really skewed. And why is that? Everybody's got that. April of 2020, we had experienced the highest inventory point of 2020. COVID in March, the sales stopped happening, and when sales stopped happening, that allowed inventory to sit, and so we got up to 7,700 units on the market. That's the highest amount of properties that we've had, and the largest number of properties we've had on the market in over, I think, 2 years. And that happened in April of last year. So when we look at 7,700 units and compare it to where the inventory was at the time this report was created at the early part of May when we had 2,500 units on the market, it shows that we've lost almost 70% of the inventory in just 12 short months. But that's skewed, of course, because of what happened to cause the inventory to spike to 7,700 units, and then all of the factors, money, interest rates, et cetera, that have caused the market to move to this situation that it's in, at least the most immediate impacts, the structural problems of the shortage and supply we'll talk about as we move along. The other things, you'll look like it shows new listings added in the month. In April of 2020, only 3,100 sellers put their properties on the market, but this year in April, there were 4,650. That's up almost 50%. And so that, again, those numbers look really significant. It looks like there's been some massive change year over year, but that's all just a factor of the unique circumstances that existed a year ago at this time. So I caution you to go into these numbers when you look new escrows added in the month. So how many buyers got their homes under contract in the 30 days of April? In 2020, it was only 2,100. That was one of our lowest months of sales on record in a long time. This year, in April, it was what, almost 4,600, up 111%. So when you look at the numbers year over year, which we traditionally do, that would lead you some inaccurate or some faulty conclusions. So any questions or comments about the numbers today or the numbers in relationship to last year? Anybody have any insights to share before I go down to my next graph? No?
Did you do any comparison from this year to 2019?
I did. I could pull that up. You want to know that really quickly? Let's see. That's interesting. So interesting, we're going to do it. Maybe. Dropbox.
There you go.
Market watch.
And you can see it.
Yeah.
Oh, data. Look at it. 2019. This is a lot faster than I thought. Okay, now which graph is it? Shit. All right. In April of 2019, where in 21 we had new listings added in the month, we had 3,674 in April of 2021. In April of 19, we had 3,722. So the market, new listings added, the market in 2021 is very similar to where the market was in April of 2019. But one interesting thing is new escrows added in the month in April of 2019 was 4,100, and new escrows added in the month in April of 21 was 4,100 to almost 4,600. So that's significant because the supply in 2019 at the time of this report was April of 19, the supply was 9,600 units, and we only had 4,100 escrows added in the month. In 2021, we have 2,500 units on the market, but 4,600 escrows were added. Do you see what's happened to demand from 2019 to 2021? And that's with an undersupplied market where there's no houses to sell. And we're still eclipsing it by upwards of 500 units. Comment, question, something? Nobody? Okay, so that's significant because one of the constraints on the potentiality of the market today is the supply. I mean, we had 4,562 new escrows added in the month, but I'll tell you what, if we had more than 2,500 units, I think that number would be well into the 5,000, if not 6,000 units that went under contract in April of 2021. Just the combination of all the variables that are at play. And so it's interesting. All right, so let's go look at 2019. Let's look at 2021 through the months. So this report tracks the last 13 months. You can see the April 2020 numbers on the far right, on the far left, and then the April 2021 numbers. And what's interesting is let's look at across that graph. Could you want to zero in on the top part of that so people can see that? Is that cool? So over to the right there, you can see the 7,721 units that were on the market back in April of 2020 right here. And I'm going to slide across and look at how we lost inventory and at the pace that we lost inventory over those months. It started just 200 units, but then we lost 900 units, then only 100, and then 100, and then because that was we were selling out the houses as fast as we were bringing them, but inventory started shrinking by 700-800 units a month. But these last 3 months, from February through April, we've had 2,700 units. At the end of February, 2,550 all the way to the right. Cool. 2,740 units at the end of February, 2,560 at the end of March, and 2,522 at the end of April. My argument is that we've reached the floor of how far the inventory can shrink to in our market. Here's why. We're adding, how many units do we add a week? 1,000 maybe? 900 to 1,000 units a week. And so every 2 weeks we're adding 1,800 to 2,000 units. That we've truly hit the floor of the inventory because that inventory is replacing itself, except for the sellers that are crazy. Either the house is in terrible condition or the price is off the charts, way too high to even get the most exuberant buyers for making an offer. But so there's that inventory, whether that's 400 to 600 units, who knows. But that turnover every 2 weeks is replacing itself, and we can't go any lower until people stop bringing their houses to the market. So we, in my opinion, are truly at the floor of inventory in Las Vegas. It can't really go much lower. Okay, so what else can we talk about in the numbers of the month over month? A couple things that are significant. I'll talk about how we know the market's potentiality is being restrained. If you look at I'm way on the right, Beta. If you look at under contract, units under contract. Okay, so bummer. Wouldn't this be cool if I could set this up so that the labels would slide over?
It would have been great.
How am I going to get that figured out? All right, but here's the new escrows added in the month. So we're going to look at under contract and new escrows added to the month. So these lines right here, let's come all the way across. Cool. So if you look at new escrows added in the month, we had 4,283 units were added in March. So that's, under contract. 4,283 units were under contract, single-family residences as of March, 5,500 total. That number went down by 40 units in April. So here we are from the swing from March through April, we're probably in some of the highest season of Las Vegas's year, yet properties under contract decreased from March to April. New escrows added in the month. In March we had 3,629. In April, 3,522. So 100 plus fewer units went under contract during the 30 days of April than in the 30 days of March. My point is, the trajectory of the season is going this way through June. It starts, and I know the year is pretty active all along, but the high months still every year for the 25 years I've been selling real estate have been February, March, April, and May. And so and then the closings happen in April, May, June, and July. And so when the sales are happening is when the activity's going. We're in our highest month of the year, and the demand numbers, new escrows added and those under contract, are going down. The market would have a lot more activity. It's just supply is limiting its ability to do that. All right. Couple things before we move on. All right. Closed units also down from March 3,600 to April down to 3,389, and that is almost a 10% decrease. That just again shows you that there's a lot more of the market had there been supply to allow to play out. And so that's the problems with supply. Let's talk about that for a minute. This is not a supply problem that's just come upon us in the last year. The supply problem that we're facing today is a result of probably the last 10 to 13 years of underbuilding that's happened in the country and particularly in Las Vegas. Remember in 09 and 10, we only built about 1,500 to 2,000 new units, added them into the inventory, and then into those early 11, 12, 13, we were only adding about 5,000 units. And we felt like I mean, does everybody think building is going crazy right now? How many people, does anybody think building is pretty soft? I mean, home building is going bonkers. And so if you look back and you said, okay, home building today, and you compared it back to, let's say, when was the last big run of home building? 05, 04, 05? How many more homes do you think we're building today than we built back in 04 and 05? Give me guesses. 5,000 more today than we did back then? Okay. Any other guesses? Pardon? Less?
New homes?
Less? New homes? New homes. How many new homes are we adding? More are we adding this year than we were adding back in those early to mid 2000s? Somebody said less. Yeah, significantly. So we added in 2020. What did we have? About 11,000 closings, and we were so happy. We broke the 10,000 unit barrier for the first time in a long time. I think 2019 and 2020 were right around 10,000. In 2004, we built 40,000 new homes. In 2005, we built 42,000 new homes. In 2006, we built 38,000 new homes. And so we're adding 10,000 units a month, and we're at 25% of the activity that existed back in the early 2000s. And so that's some perspective. In those months when in those years that we were only adding 1,500 units or 5,000 units to the inventory, we were, even in recessionary times, we weren't building enough product to account for just the demography, the demographic shift in the population, let alone the in-migration that was still happening into Las Vegas from other parts of the world for the reasons that people like to move to Las Vegas. And that problem has been going on for 10 plus years. And then when you compound that with the fact that millennials have decided to come out of all of the pores of the world to buy houses, in 2020, 40% of all purchases were first-time home buyers. The millennials are coming out of the woodwork and into the marketplace in a market that was already incredibly short, had an incredible supply shortage nationally. And then Vegas's problem gets even worse because now I can work from home, and that's going to be the way of the world. So let me go live somewhere where there's no state income tax, where it's sunny a lot, and where there's a lot of cool things going on. And they pick our city. And so, we're adding, what is it? I think we're adding about 4,000 to 5,000 net in-migration a month. So if you do the math, let's use 4,000 times 12 months, we'll get to 50, just round up. How many people per household? 2.5, is that fair? And so how many houses do we need? 15,000 houses in 2021 just to account for the demand that exists from the in-migration. Set aside all the other variables, the millennials that aren't going to live with mom and dad anymore and they live here but they want to buy a house. And we don't even produce enough homes in 2021 to deal with the shortage. And so it's not going away. This condition that we live in as real estate professionals, I think is going to be around for a long 2 years, maybe 5. There's no sign that it can shift. There's only right now left one thing that can shift it, and that's interest rates, in my opinion. I used to think forbearance was something that could cause our market to flip, but not in the new world, not with COVID we've eliminated COVID from the world. And so it's gone now, so we're free to move about the city, and that's causing people to come here and play. Our problem is not getting people back to work, it's finding people to work. And so we have labor shortages. Many of the casinos can't go to 100% capacity, even though they're allowed to do so, because they can't fulfill the employment obligations in order to open all the restaurants or all the segments of the hotel. And so, stimulus money spoiled some folks, and they still are spoiled. Have you tried to get an Uber in any city recently? So the stimulus money has kept people from going back to work, and as a result, everybody's getting back to work. So when you're off forbearance, which folks don't have to be off yet if they still have that hardship. They're going to be employed and able to make their house payment again. And so they're not going to be forced to sell to capture the equity, to protect the family, to go into a rental or to move in with family members or whatever that was going to be. Now they can stay in their house. And so that potential supply of product that I thought was coming to the market as a result of forbearance and the implications that it was going to have on the Las Vegas market are long gone. There was an article on April 21st in the Review Journal that talked about the forbearance numbers, and it talked about unemployment rates and how they had spiked to 34%, and pre-COVID they were 4.9%, and now they were at 8.6% or 8.5% as of April 21st. And the point was that, wow, unemployment's coming back down to near pre-COVID levels. Let's look at how many people are still still utilizing forbearance, and that was 5.93% of Clark Countyans were still utilizing forbearance. Of the 475,000 households or owner-occupied residences in Clark County, that meant 27,000 homes were still claiming forbearance. Well, okay, let's say half of those homes have to come to the market, 13,000. And they're not all going to come to the market on June 15th. They're going to, if they did, they were going to come out paced out over probably a year to 18 months. Forbearance going away isn't going to affect the supply problem, in my opinion, in the slightest. The only thing that can slow the market down, in my opinion, is an increase in interest rates. And that will, who knows what that will do to prices. I mean, it may not affect prices. It may just slow demand down to make the market operate in somewhat more of a normal supply and demand dynamic. Comments, questions? Let's talk about that for a minute. I said a lot.
Yeah, incredibly agree. It was good information.
All right, so anything else? Let's talk about prices. So it's fun. I can tell you that we started at the beginning onset of COVID, we started tracking the numbers on a weekly basis. I'll talk about those. I'll show you my weekly graphs. They're not as pretty, but the data is very telling. I get most of my research now from the weekly numbers, not the monthly numbers. The prices. So I don't track, the MLS is bigger than Clark County. Maybe it's not bigger than Clark County. It's bigger than the greater Las Vegas. And so I pull out data from Overton and Moapa and Laughlin and Pahrump and Mesquite and all the outlying areas that report inside of the Las Vegas MLS. When they take that data, they take the entirety of the pool of MLS data. I strip that back, and so all I'm looking at is greater Clark County area. If you still use areas, I do. Areas 101 through 606. And so that is, to me, greater Las Vegas. So my data is a little tighter and I think a little more accurate for what the world you work in and we work in every day. And my numbers showed at the end of April that the median price of a single family residence let's go back to this chart. Is that cool? Down at the bottom, in the far right corner, the median price of a single family residence had inched up to $376,500 at the end of April. Now LVR reported that number was $375,000. So we're not far off, and it's pretty close every month. But I'll tell you, I think that data is a little tighter. It does, some of those outlying areas might have a lower median price, which tends to pull that number down when you add in that data. So I think this is a better reflection of what's going on in the Las Vegas area. But that number, $376,500, is up in January. At the end of January, it was $345,000, right? Is that January, February, March? Yeah. 345,000, now it's 376. That's up 9.1% in 90 days. Extrapolated out over the balance of the 12 months of 2021, if our home prices are up 36% from that 345, we're at a big number. I can tell you this in the weekly numbers, and I'll pull those up. The weekly numbers already say that by the end of May, I can tell you by looking at the first 2 weeks of May, by the end of May, we will be, if not above, we'll definitely be at the median price of a single family house will be $380. I'm guessing it's going to be like 382 to 383 right now. But just because of what closings have already happened and the trajectory of what's going to go on the rest of the month. So prices, it's a big deal. It's just when you feel like we've reached up to the bumper of where people either have a tolerance for payment or purchase price, or whether they just can't. The market seems to fascinate me every day. I mean, it's no longer about, as you know, you've been pricing your houses. If the word comps hasn't even made it into the vocabulary of any buyer, if it has, you can tell that you need to sit back down at the table and have a little education exercise about what to expect in this market. The question is, how much? Okay, they're asking 375. Can we get it for 400? What is it going to take 425? I mean, that's the buyer's mentality, you know that, and that's the conversation you're having with them. Nobody looks to see what the last 2 or 3 sales were, because who really cares? That's not going to have any bearing on what happens over the course of that next 24 to 48 hour negotiation. So it's going to be fun, or maybe it already is. Chris?
Are you tracking percentages of sales that are cash purchases versus
Yeah,
finance?
yeah. We're going to come over there. Yeah, I can tell you that. Beta, do you want to jump 2 slides? Boom, boom. Yeah. So last month, cash purchases were 28% of all the purchases that happened in my data pool. That's up significantly. That was, if I go back, I don't track that in a graph month over month, but if I went back into my little Dropbox, I could show you that 6 months ago that number was only about 20. 8 months ago that number was about 20%, and it's slowly, or in the last couple of months, quickly inched up. And so what is that money, and what's causing, I think that's not, I wouldn't say that's a lot of investors rolling into the market. There's still certainly some money that needs to be placed. There's 1031 money that's happening, and investors are finding that just because the affordability, where the rents are today in relationship to what that payment is, they can still make things work if they're leveraging their investment. But, you got to be careful, and I think the smart investors are a little cautious, because if interest rates, if the rental market shifts, the investor's payment doesn't go down as the rental market shifts, and so that could get interesting. I think the majority of that money, those spike in cash purchases, is sunny California money rolling across the border. And so I bought my house in California back in 2006 for $400,000, and I sold it last week for $1.7 million. Now, who in the world is moving to California and paying $1.7 million for a house there? And I don't know, but somebody is, because California's market is still hot. I guess it's just this movement of millennials into the marketplace. When you look at every state, if you go out and look at every state and say, well, if people are moving here at $5,000 a month and our sales are up dramatically, it's got to be coming from somewhere. What state is suffering? But all but New York and one other state all have increases in population and housing sales in double digits over the last 12 months. So it's not we're stealing from California. We're getting Californians, but the Californians are coming out of the woodwork and buying the houses that the Californians who are coming to Nevada are buying. And so I'm coming here with my 1.7, after my commissions, my $1.6 million, and I'm looking at a house and it's $900,000, and it kicks the heck out of the house I just sold in California, and it's $800,000 less. Give them $1 million. Let's get this. I'll pay $100,000 extra for the lot premium. That'll be my house. I don't care if that's stupid. It's my house and it was free money. And that's, I think, what's driving your cash purchases.
There was an article that came out last week that talked about the fact that in 04 and 05, the trend was as the market price got higher, loan programs asked for less down payment. And the opposite trend is happening now, where people are putting in higher down payments as the price climbs, which is, the average millennial is putting down 20%. Versus before it was zero down financing. That's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, the similarities between now and then are not. They're zero. I don't think there's anything other than that prices are going up. All of the factors, all of the health, and if you're relying on 08 as history to tell you what's going to happen in 2023 or 4, I think that's not good. In fact, The Psychology of Money, he has a great chapter 18 I gave to my team to read, and it talks about the narratives that we all make in life, and that we all understand a few points, and then we just fill in the rest of the story to make the story work, and we can all paint a story. That's a good chapter. That's a chapter to read in that book a couple times. It's about your real estate business, not about money. But that, that's on point there. What else?
I'd be interested to know what percentage of homes are being sold where people are waiting the appraisal contingency. That's cash.
Oh, yeah. So, well, I can tell you this. I can say that last month, the median list price of the homes that sold was 375,000, and the median sales price of those homes that were listed at 375 was 376.5. So in the marketplace overall, when you look at all the data, homes are selling for higher than the asking price. And we know that the asking price is already beefed up because the sellers looked and said, oh, that last sale was 350, this one should be about 440. And, or, okay, 390, but whatever it is. But, you know, I have been amazed at numbers. I like the number, I no chance, and it happens. So yeah, it's crazy. But I don't know. That's interesting. I'll bet a lot. I'll bet a lot of loans or deals that are going down, the appraisal contingency is getting waived. In many, I haven't had one yet on my side represented where we've represented a buyer or a seller in the last 30 units where the appraisal conversation was still part of the deal. Now, it was part of the deal in somebody's selfish mind, and they said, all right, how do we get out now? But it was not a term in the contract. Anything else? I'm going on. All right, what time is it? Please.
10.
Good. All right. So let's look at price segment breakdown. That's the slide. Boom. All right, so this is something that we do, and this is very interesting to me. So I broke this, I arbitrarily chose these price segments. Once I got to 500, I made them $250,000 jumps. So some of the data down below is a little more skewed. There are a lot fewer than 400. I mean, it looks like, oh my gosh, look, the 507 to 750 market is bigger than all the others, but their data points are shrunk into $100,000 gaps, so don't let that fool you. But if you look, the most interesting thing is, if you look at months of supply over on the right, from 0 to 500 to 700, from 0 to 750,000, we have less than a month's supply in all of those price segments. Some of them we have under 2 weeks of inventory. Like look at 300 to 350 or 350 to 400, kind of where the median price lands right now. You got 228 choices in the entire valley, but in that month we sold 575 units, more than 2 times the number of units that were available. And so you can see how we've reached the floor of our supply. There's not much lower it can go because they're being bought as fast as or faster than they're coming to the market. Cool. Okay. Any questions, or what else do you want to talk about? Nothing?
It's a lot of information.
Well, let's talk about something else. So, what can we talk about? I got stuff. You want to talk about what I thought about who, not how? Or I'll quit.
What was your other slide? Did you have one at the end?
Oh, the weekly data. Thank you. All right, we'll do that. I talked about it, but we'll look at it. So this is really interesting. This is going to be where all the data is. So let's go all the way. So this is week by week. We started tracking this in 2020 at the start of COVID, but I went back and recreated 2019 because I needed something as a frame of reference as I was compiling the 2020 data. It didn't really give any insights when it didn't have anything to frame it against. So from now, from March 15th of 2019 through the present, I've tracked the data on a weekly basis. And so just a few important numbers to me. So if you go, let's go clear to the right, and I'll show you why I think what I think. So here's the first 2 weeks of May. And so in the first 2 weeks of May, from May 2nd to May 8th and May 9th to 15th, there were 1,108 units and 1,086 units added to the market in those 2 weeks. Of them, 872 and 847 were single-family houses, 236 and 239 were condos or townhouses. Of the properties that were added to the market, the single-family residence median prices was $399,000 or $395,000 respectively. But that doesn't tell us much because right now, if you would go look at what is the median list price of homes that are currently on the market, those 2,522 units that are on the market, not all of those are houses, 1,875 of them are houses. Of those 1,875 houses, the median list price today is $400,000. No, it's not. It's higher than that by a long shot. It's $480,000. And so the product that's coming to the market right now is when you shrink the pool, you lose all that luxury stuff that sits there for a longer amount of time that pulls that median list price of the total data pool set up. You have very few luxury homes compared to the bulk of the stuff that's centered around the top of the bell curve or the median price. And so, but the median list price of the stuff that's on the market today is $480,000. Now think about that for a second. The median, so if we went out there in the world today and looked at those 1,800 houses, the median list price is $480,000. What's the median sales price? $376,500. The median sales price of the product that's selling is $100,000+ less than the median list price of the stuff that's on the market. Process that. That's a fascinating. I mean, that's the inherent pull in the market of the greed of the seller. That's or the how about no, that's a bad word. The excitement of the seller that's taking the price up as high as it'll go, versus the pull down of the buyer that doesn't want to pay that and is not willing to pay that. They're not buying the house at a median price of $450,000 or $470,000. The market run is on the $400,000 product right now, or that inching up to it. And so that there's always tension there. So back to my point of the product that's coming to the market right now, $395,000 is the list price. Look at here's the stuff that's going under contract. We have the same number or more, 1,096 and 1,130. Look at what the median list price of the stuff that's going under contract is. And what I know is that the homes are selling at their list price. When I go back and historically look at the data every month, I just reported that list price of the homes that sold versus their sales price was 1.004. So homes sold for more than they were listed for of those homes that sold. Not compared to what's left on the market, but of those that sold, their list price was basically the same as their sales price. So if these homes are going under contract right here, and this is their median list price, do you see where we can start to see where the median sales price is going? Because it's higher than the list price when we looked at the data historically month over month these last few months. In the same vein, when I go down and look at the stuff that's selling, look at here I am through the end of April. And so here are my 4 weeks of April. 370, 377, 375, 385. Well, no wonder the median sales price at the end of April was 376.5, and look what's happening in the start of May. 380 and 385 for my first 2 weeks. So depending on what happens in the next 10 days, it'll shake out. We'll have some numbers in a couple days, and that'll really give me my guide on whether we're going all the way to 385 or whether we'll stall out in those low 380s. But that's where the price is headed based on the weekly numbers.
Dave, what's your opinion of affordability? So at what point does the affordability kick in with the buyer?
Well, that's a great question. And so what is the median household income in Las Vegas? Does anybody have a sense?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
So the median household income is, I think, in the low 70s.
Yeah, 68.
It is?
I think it's
The median individual income is like 55. It's up. It's gone up a lot in the last couple years. It's been pretty much around 50 my whole 3 years in the industry. But it's now spiked these last few years, and it's up. But the median household income, $72,000. I think that where interest rates are right now, are they still hovering around 3% or just below?
Yeah.
Where interest rates are right now, I think that number can go north of 400,000 and still be affordable.
Don't you feel a little bit that affordability is a fantasy? Because if it was California, New York, or Florida, for 10 years it went up dramatically, and everyone kept buying and buying and buying because they had to have a place to live. But the one thing we don't have is outlying areas that are
Yet. Right.
But I mean, it's never been affordable, right, for most people. And then when they finally do get there, it's out of reach again.
Well, I think I'm going to dovetail on your comment. The problem in our market right now is affordable for who? And so the affordability for Californians and New Yorkers is just fine because they're coming in, they're working from home, they've got a job that's paying them at a cost of living that they were able to handle in San Francisco or in LA or in New York, and now they're coming to Las Vegas where the cost of living is substantially lower, perhaps, and their housing expenses down. So affordability for them is great. I think that, and I've read a couple of intimations of this in articles, but somebody's going to write this soon. And so if you got connections to Eli, tell him. But I think that the place that we're getting, the group that's getting crushed are the Las Vegans.
Right.
the affordability for the local resident is is just being destroyed. Because the influx of people from the in-migration from out of the market is allowing that price to go up and making it so that my job and my income doesn't allow me to be able to buy that house that someone from LA or Orange County can.
But only those that are just trying to get on the real estate train. Those that are already on the train have the equity to be able to keep the affordability and be able to purchase.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, I wish that, in theory, that sounds great, but my life and experiences in real life are this. I go out and I take all that glorious equity and I go into the market and I'm going to upsize, and what I find is I can upsize in price and the house isn't much better than what I had. And so it doesn't translate. It's not dollar for dollar across. It's hard. More right now, sellers are backing away from the marketplace because there's just nothing to move to, and that's going to be a problem. I mean, the activity in the market at some point has to slow down. There's only so many people who are going to move here, and once our local people can't move for a while, that may be the beginning of the trigger. Psychology of Money says they talk about in the market triggering events that cause. Like he talked about what caused the housing crisis, and it was what caused the housing crisis, the mortgage meltdown in 2007 was 9/11. And he tracks it back in all the events that were triggered by 9/11 and what that did to the market and the stock market and how that caused stocks to shift in different areas and why that caused the mortgage crisis and the housing meltdown in the middle 2000s. So there's triggering events that we don't know about until they've already happened. It's not going to be, oh my gosh, look, interest rates have gone to 5. Of course the market's going to shift. That's going to be the last vestige of the shift in the market. There are going to be things that cause that to happen, and that momentum is going to be going long before the increase in interest rates when the obvious thing happens that then allows us to know the market shift. And so, again, The Psychology of Money, it's a great book. I've applied its principles to many other aspects of my life and business. All right, so that's the weekly numbers. That's what I know. If there's no other questions, I'm going to wrap this up. Any other comments or questions? Yeah.
Where do you see the eviction issue going as far as inventory?
Well, I don't know. I mean, renters. So, some renters are going to get evicted, and that's going to cause the supply to maybe go up a little bit. But those, the demand's way too great in the rental market. I don't see that really having much impact on the dynamics of the market. It's going to suck for some people because I don't know where you'll live. I mean, it's been interesting. I've tried to get into this. I'm trying to get into this marketing group, and in order to do that, there was like a hazing process. And so I got hazed. I had to do I had to work with 3 rental clients, and oh boy. And so I jumped in, and I'm like taking this on, and I'm out trying to help these people find rentals, and I'm starting to hear the life story of what real life is like in this predicament. And I've got people that have, I've met people or accidentally they've come into my world randomly. They have mid 600 or better credit scores, and they're going out and they're looking at rentals and they're putting up their $75 application fee or the $100 application fee, and the landlord or the management company's holding it for 5 or 6 days, and in comes the 720 credit score that'll bump the rent by $50, and my people lose. And I had folks that were days from having to live in their car because they had received their last 30-day extension on their existing tenancy, and they had nowhere to go and nowhere that they could move into. And so, the tears of joy when we were able to figure out some solutions, it affected me a lot. It's a real problem out there. This housing supply problem, we think about it from in times desensitized, because we're in the industry, from a desensitized perspective, because it's what we do every day. But there's a lot of bad things going on for families and individuals out there. So, pause and think about that and put in a little extra effort to help people, because shit, some people are in some dire straits. All right, cool. I've enjoyed it. Thank you. If there's no more questions, I'm done.
Give it up for David. Folks, thank you for joining us. Another great sales meeting. Go out and sell something expensive. It helps.